I know some of you might whisper and say, does that really suit to him? I have some Arabic roots, that's why my name is Mohamed Salem. People call me Mo, so I'm sure we can all agree to that. If you have any questions, please raise your hands or just interrupt if you feel so. I really want to, I don't want you to feel like I'm teaching you on anything. I really just want to share my experience. Obviously, I'm not that much older than most of you, so yeah, I don't want to feel you like I'm teaching you anything. I'm just going to share some experiences from my side in the field of sales, working with Apple in the past 6 years. And actually, how it all came to this situation is also, might be a funny story for you guys. I talked to Dominic Runge recently, one of your fellow students. He was in our office and he was really sick and tired of some applications that we were receiving. They were basically, I don't want to say any bad words about them, but they really sucked. And I told him something like, I don't really even remember what it was exactly, but I said something like I could already write a book about how to apply for a job. And that was actually why I'm standing here today, because he just took me up on that, and yeah, that's how I got here. So, a little bit about myself. I was always curious about politics, and very soon also, after graduating in tourism school, I started working in the Federal Chancellery of Austria, which is the Bundeskanzleramt. And after some work there and my studies in politics, I somehow realized that the public sector is not really something for me. I don't know, it's not really that productive as I expected it to be. And that's when I started working for Apple in sales, because I'm really interested into new technologies. I've always been. And after some time, there was quite a lack for recruiting. They actually started off with 5 salespeople in Austria, and now they have about 20, I guess. Dominic is one of them. 17? 24. 24. Wow. So that's what we've accomplished for the past 5 years. I founded my own company back then in 2011, starting in recruiting, training, and also in organizing the promotions for Apple in Austria, all over the different media and Saturn markets that you might already have seen. And that's when I also did my trainer certification for Apple, which was also really interesting, because I got to know a lot of different people training in the field of sales all over Europe. And yeah, it was a huge experience for me, and I'm definitely not done on my journey. Also something might noteworthy, I also co-founded a startup called McWerk, which is now focusing on the implementation of Apple products in educational institutions. Currently market leader in Austria, and if you followed Austrian politics, you might know that the digitalization of in education is something very current. And that's what I also want to start with. Some current trends that really have a lot of impact and influence on the current job situation in the job market, because I think it's going to influence all of you, including me. And yeah, so far for this. So to give you an overview, I'll be talking about the following subjects: today's job market and some trends about that. And then I'm going to deep dive a little bit into what's important about a letter of motivation and CV, what you might look for. Again, I'm not going to be too theoretical about this, because you can read a lot of stuff of how to do that. Then I'll give you an insight of how an employer, or what an employer might look for, as I've tried to do that for the past 5 years. And afterwards I'm going to focus on the interview and the questions that might be raised in an interview, and how you can prepare yourself for those. And of course, a little bit of Q&A. Alright, so today's job market is influenced by a lot of different things. In this picture already you can see some things going on that wouldn't have been possible many years ago, or at least 5 to 10 years ago. And it led me to something really curious that I found out in the past 5 years of recruiting, because recruiting has changed a lot. Things like employer branding and companies' awareness to the motivation of their employees have changed a lot. But basically what I wanted to say with this is that from new skills, ultimately you will all automatically have new jobs created. So there's a really interesting Forbes article about this also that says that many jobs related to new technologies haven't been there 10 years ago. Like app developer, for instance, app designer, social media manager, cloud services specialist, user experience design, digital marketing specialist. So I basically just wanted to highlight that this really creates a lot of skills, or these new technologies that have arisen in the last years have created a lot of skills that can be used for the jobs that we don't even know about yet. Some examples that I want to share with you. The biggest cab company, Uber, probably all know about it, is the biggest cab company in the world and it doesn't own any single cab. Airbnb, the biggest accommodation platform so far, doesn't own any real estate. Same goes for Skype and WeChat. They have no telecommunication infrastructure so far. Same for Facebook. They own they publish a lot of media, but they don't own it. And Alibaba, I've not gotten that much into their business field, but they're quite big in Asia, I've been told. And so far, right now, they are the world's most valuable reseller, and yet they have no inventory. And the same goes for Netflix with cinemas. So why am I telling you that? There was a speech of Angela Merkel in December in France, and she said something. I'm going to translate it in a few seconds. She said something that Obama said a year ago, and everyone was, not everyone, but many people in Austria that I know were pretty much laughing about it. She basically said that I do believe that the competency to code or to do programming is going to be one of the basic skills of young people next to reading, writing, and calculating, or math. Actually, that was also said by the Austrian government a few weeks ago, that this is going to be their core focus. But before I'm going to talk about that, those are the current core competencies that are being taught in schools and universities. What would you guess are going to be the next topics in the upcoming 10 years, or maybe already now? What core competencies do you think are going to be important in the next years, next to those? Any examples?
Coding.
Coding, I've mentioned that, yeah. If you're going to have kids, and they're going to be in elementary school someday, what would you think next to those would be important for them?
Communication.
Communication, yeah. Any other examples?
Just search for information, because you have all this information online and you have to search for it. So you have to find specific information out of a lot of information. Mm-hmm. And you do not have to know a special date because you can find it easily, but you have to search for it and you have to know how to search for information.
Let's call it maybe not only searching, but also handling of information. Yeah. That one is actually one of my most favorite ones, because we're living in times where we're overwhelmed with information, and it really is very much about how to handle it and how to reflect on it and how to critically think about it. Because only this one, just think of fake news, for instance. I still have a lot of friends, and even in the same age, but definitely also older people, who will not be able to critically reflect on the information that they are given. So that's definitely something that needs to change when we're looking at the future generations that are going to be taught about that in school. Actually, that is already taking place in the current education strategies, also in Austria. All right, Generation Y. That's pretty much all of us in this room. Why did I mention this topic? When I started posting job adverts for Apple 5 years ago, I would just have to go on any university's website and put on some information about a job at Apple, and I was overwhelmed by applicants. That's actually not the case today. And I started realizing that Generation Y has a lot to do with this. You know, our generation is very much focusing on work-life balance instead of how much money can I make. And a lot of motivational things come out of this. Things like flexible working hours, desk sharing, and many others have a lot to do with Generation Y. And I also realized that with Apple, for instance, when changing from 38 work hours in sales to 29, we attracted a lot more people that were really talented and wanted to do a side job in something creative, like producing music, working on apps, also actors, you know, things that you can do besides your job. So that's really important, and that's something you might look for. Also, there's a lot of shift in motivation because of Generation Y. IBM, for instance, they made a deployment of over 100,000 Macs for their employees last year, and that actually had a huge shift in motivation for their employees, and it attracted a lot of new talent also, because they simply gave their people the chance to work with whatever computer they wanted, and of course 75% of them chose the Mac. But I don't want to go too much into technology. It's just some current things that that I'm confronted with as well, and that I wanted to share with you. Also, something very interesting from the Harvard Business Review: the age of hyper-specialization. That's also something that currently we are very much dealing with. 10 years ago, it was a software developer that companies were searching. Now it's things like, it's 3 jobs actually. It's design, it's coding, and it's testing. You know? And also something interesting in regards to this article, what company was it? Boeing, exactly. Boeing, for the newest project of the Dreamliner, they had a list on their website for the major suppliers. Just the major suppliers, which was 379. You know? So why am I telling you this? I started marketing and sales. I didn't mention that before. I started marketing and sales in between all of my being independent and founding a company. And I never did something in marketing actually, even though I was always interested in it. And I didn't do that much in sales actually. I just did recruiting and training Salesforce. And I focused a lot on that, and that's why also I got to know a lot with Apple, and why they trusted in me, and why I still have a very good cooperation with Apple in Austria going on. So that's what I actually wanted to share with you. If you're going to do something besides your studies or after your studies, focus. And because of a lot of things that are currently evolving, a lot of jobs that are evolving, and new skills that are evolving, there's a huge skill gap. I've talked to a lot of employers and a lot of HR responsible people, and they all say the same things. What we want and what the people out of universities or their education can offer, there's a huge gap simply because it's not being taught on schools or universities in many other areas. There's also a study about this. It was conducted by Manpower. They've asked 18,000 employers, and over, I think it was more than 40 countries. And the study conducted that 2/3 of our next generation's job, Generation Z, which is also known for digital natives, don't exist yet. Alright, so that was just a little bit of current trends. I just wanted to share that with you because it has nothing to do directly with the job application, I know that. But I think you should know what's going on out there, and some of you might, some haven't looked into that. But I found it curious because it has had a lot of influence on my work for the past 5 years. We had to, mainly because we started to justify why it makes sense to work for or with Apple, you know. And it's not that I want to say that Apple is the greatest company in the world, but employer branding and Generation Y and the changes in technology have a huge influence, and I think many people don't even know that. Alright, so how do I do my recruiting? And I found that many others in that field, in sales and IT, also do it like that. We try to use all channels possible, Karriere.at and all the platforms that you might know, but also directly LinkedIn messaging. I've just written to 50 other people in LinkedIn yesterday, for instance, who I think are filtered down to some interesting topics. Then we do FaceTime interviews, just 10 minutes, just to look if people are eloquent and outgoing, which is definitely needed in sales. After that, we have job interviews on site, where we have a little bit of activity and also challenge the applicants. It's about 1 hour. And then we give our recommendations towards Apple. Of course, it's not always that way. I also recently read that 40% of all jobs are not even posted anywhere. They're just given out by recommendations or by knowing people. I also very often, for instance, go shopping to places that focus on customer experience, places like Nespresso, Nike, and other stores. And when I find someone, I just hand out my contacts and get in touch. Alright, so again, this is just what I have experienced. I think I've written more than 1,000 letters of motivation and CVs in the past 5 years, and I've had a lot of application or job interviews. So this is really just a glimpse and really just some experience that I felt I needed to share because I experienced so many other things. First one is change perspectives. So many people focus on what they can offer and what they are good at when they apply for a job. And they don't really look at the specific company and what the company looks for, what the employer looks for, what the branch or the field that the company is focusing on, the market is looking for, what they might need and what you can offer and what the combination of both would look like. What you can offer, what you can add as a value to the company. That's what I wanted to highlight. Yeah, basically connects to that. But yeah, also another thing, I very often get horrible pictures in CVs. I really think, this is obviously just a joke, but I'm going to show you a few examples that we actually received. And what did I want to say with this? I think if you're applying for a job, take the time to make a professional picture of yourself. I'm a really good example. I have never invested that much time of taking 100 pictures and selecting one of myself. I don't like to do that. I don't like to brag about myself. I'm not like that. But still, it is valuable to take the time and have a professional picture of yourself if you're going to apply for a job. I'm going to show some examples afterwards. Does anyone know this abbreviation?
Yeah. Keep it simple. Something else.
Keep it short and simple. Yeah. Something that I probably also should look for sometimes. I like to talk, so yeah. Keep it short and simple. If you're going to send your stuff to a guy who has to read tons of applications every day, he will really like you if you reduce it to the minimum. You know, he or she, of course. Okay, so I'm going to give you some examples of applications that we've been receiving. Those are actual examples. Of course, I hit all the names and everything, but I thought it would be funny for you to learn from the bad ones. Okay. So this is a perfect scenario where we receive a short message. Hey, I applied for the job. PDF file, really important. PDF with a CV and letter of motivation. In reality, it very, very often looks like this. That we actually received that not too long ago. Or this. I want to work here and I'm very worksome. I don't know what that means. Yeah, I mean, in his defense, he was a champion in some barkeeping thing. I don't know, but yeah, also not a PDF. Okay. And again, I'm not showing this to make fun of people. I'm not showing this to make fun of people. Just look at the grammar. I'm not showing this to make fun of people. No. I'm showing it because 80% of what we receive is really not reflected. It is obvious. This is very obvious, but there's also less obvious stuff that, you know, from my experience, I know what to look for, and I know where I see that people don't have spent the required amount of time to reflect on the job and what they might add as a value. And if I see that, I don't really feel tempted to give back my respect in a job interview. So that's why I wanted to say, avoid any copy-paste wording. Any phrase that you will regularly read on the internet, just avoid it. You know, I know that you're gonna apply for a lot of different companies at the same time, but the least you can do is focus on a company on every single one and every single job that you're interested in, and just find out one thing about the company ethics or the job that you can highlight that links to you and that makes you interesting or that makes you interested in the job. If you just insert that, you're already in the top 10%, and I'm already delighted to invite you. Also what I just said, basically. And for the ones who want to, I mean, maybe not at Goldman Sachs, but in many, many areas, and I've also talked about that to many other people, you know, when you're a recruiter or an employer and you receive the same stuff every day, you're really happy with something different. Dare to be different. You can add your application, your letter of motivation and your CV, that's fine, but if you put in a video about yourself, a 1-minute video, a pitch, or a website that you created, you know, people are really gonna like this, and you're really gonna stand out, you know. And the reason for that, I don't know why I specifically posted this one, but people very often say, why don't you send a letter of refusal? I usually do that, but with the ones that I've just showed you, I think if people don't bring the least amount of respect to my side, I really don't feel like responding. But I think that's obvious. What I wanted to say is, excitement starts where expectation ends. So if you do something that is not expected or not asked for, but still cool, you're also going to stand out. That's something I really learned with Apple. You know, some of you might have heard of the Kano model. Does anyone know the Kano model? Okay, basically, I'm not going to draw it up now, but basically the Kano model is something that it's a really simple model that shows, it's for marketing, and it shows that basically what is said here, you know. When you not fulfill something that is expected, people are going to be really pissed, you know. But if you do offer something that is not expected, delightment is really going to be at the customer side, or in this side, at the employer side. Just one very simple example. 2 decades ago, people would have been delighted if you get a really cool meal at an airline. Nowadays, they won't be delighted, they will expect it. You know? It's probably going to be the Wi-Fi that is going to surprise them. You know? And that's what I meant with these examples. Do a video application, do a website, do whatever is not expected. It can be really, really simple things also. So, yeah, just to put it together, avoid generic phrases. Get a professional photo of yourself, try something creative, double check everything. If you're not that good in grammar because it's not your mother tongue, that's fine. You know, I'm not making fun of people who are not good at a language. You can always ask someone who's good at it, you know. And that also shows how much emphasis you take and how much time you take for something. And highlight your link to the company. It's also gotten increasingly important. Why? Company ethics, moral, how a company stands in the modern world, and how its identity is being received is something really, really important. You know, if a small thing happens to a company, that might be bad for PR, it's going to have a huge impact. Talking of shitstorms, for instance. So, if you have anything that connects to the company and to the ethics of the company, and you feel like you can link it, do so. Also, a really simple one, might seem like a no-brainer, but I've seen, it wouldn't be accordingly to come in a suit when applying at a job for Apple. Not even the CEO in Austria. I've not once seen him in a suit, in the past 5 or 6 years. In a financial institution, it might be the opposite, but whatever you do, you gotta feel comfortable, because that's also something that I see very, very often. People try to show their best, to show up in the best possible way they can appear, and then they change themselves actually so much that they don't feel comfortable, and ultimately they won't be confident in themselves. And as a recruiter, and any person in HR will have a lot of empathy, and we smell that. And that's not. I just talked to Dominic actually in the beginning of the talk, and he said he was really thankful for me to be the first person to not grill him, to not do the bad cop thing, because I do believe that when I see people who are nervous in a job interview, I actually try to put them on a nice level and do some jokes, because I believe that when a person is so nervous that they can't feel comfortable, they can actually show the best of their personality, and then we might also lose some talent with that. So, but maybe not everyone sees it like that, so some people like to grill, as Dominic said it, and therefore you really have to make sure that you're going to feel comfortable. And it can be small things, it can be the things you wear, it can be anything, but don't try to change yourself too much just for a job interview. All right. Do you have any questions so far? Okay. Then I'm gonna finish off with my final part. During the interview, just some really small things that might be considered in an interview. Purpose of a question. There are really, just as in an application, there are so many questions that are always repeatedly asked, and you can really prepare yourself for them. I'm not gonna teach you about some theory, but basically questions always come to 3 different topics: competencies, character, and experience. Apple, very good example also. There's sales competence, there's product and brand knowledge. Those 2 are good if you have them, but we can teach you in about 2 weeks about all those things. It's really the character that has to fit. Company ethics, again, if you can highlight that with your personality and say, I'm a believer, I think I can change the world, that's going to fit to the company ethics. So, what I want to tell you about this is try to find out about the different types of questions that are being asked in an interview, and try to ask them for yourselves, so you are prepared when they are being asked towards you. Also, show your CV to someone that might not know that much about you, because very often there's going to be some things that might seem a little bit odd to the employer, and if they ask it, you should better be prepared for that as well. So if you have anything that is irregular, that is basically what an employer looks for. Anything that is irregular, anything that is, can be criticized, so that he or she can see how you react to it, how you act in a critical situation. And, again, I can only share my experience in the field of sales, but this is the case in most other situations as well. If it's not an assessment center, it's at least going to be a job-related task. So, for instance, sales, I never do a job interview without a sales conversation. I'm always a customer. I always try to make a simulation of a sales conversation.